You may be afraid, you may feel unworthy, uncertain, incapable, but hear me, your calling is not dependent on your ability. It is dependent on His power. He does not call the qualified, He qualifies the called. He does not choose the strongest, the most skilled, the most impressive. He chooses the willing. The ones who say, "Here I am, send me." The ones who lay down their lives, who abandon everything if only to walk in His will. But you must make a choice. God will not force you. He will call, He will stir your heart, He will press upon you with His conviction, but He will not drag you into obedience. You must decide. You must count the cost. Because once you step forward, there is no turning back. And if you refuse, if you choose comfort over calling, if you choose safety over surrender, then know this: you may have temporary peace, but you will never have fulfillment. You may carve out a life for yourself, but you will always feel that something is missing. Because what you were made for will always be greater than anything you can create for yourself. So what will you do? Will you keep resisting, keep running, keep trying to silence the voice that refuses to be silenced? Or will you finally surrender, finally lay it all down, finally step into the purpose you were created for? Because the truth is, if you are chosen, you will never truly live until you do. You stand at the edge of a decision that will define the rest of your life. You have seen the signs. You have felt the weight. You know deep in your soul that you were never meant for an ordinary existence. God has been calling you, molding you, refining you, not to destroy you, but to prepare you. The trials, the conviction, the divine restlessness, none of it was an accident. It was His hand shaping you for something greater, but now the choice is in your hands. You can keep running, keep resisting, keep trying to build a life apart from the one who called you. Or you can surrender. You can lay it all down, your fears, your doubts, your need for control, and trust that the one who formed you has a purpose beyond anything you could ever imagine. There is no peace in resisting. There is no fulfillment in staying where it is safe. Those who are truly chosen will never find rest until they step fully into the call placed upon them. So do not wait. Do not hesitate. The time is now. Answer the call. Step forward. Surrender everything. And watch what God will do with a life fully given to Him. Look at the men God has used throughout history. None of them were left untested. None of them were spared the breaking. Joseph was thrown into a pit, betrayed by his own brothers, and left to rot in a prison cell. Moses was driven into the wilderness, stripped of his identity, made to feel like nothing before he was called to stand before Pharaoh. David was anointed as king, yet spent years running for his life, hiding in caves, living in exile before he ever sat on a throne. Why? Because those whom God chooses, He first humbles. Those whom He calls, He first prepares. And that preparation is never easy. Trials are the chisel in the hand of God. They cut deep, they break. They remove everything that is not meant to remain. You have cried out in pain, asking why, wondering when the suffering will end, questioning if God even sees you. But He does. He has seen every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of despair. And yet He has allowed it. Not because He does not love you, but because He does. Because He is making you into something you could never be on your own. Because He is stripping away the pride, the self-reliance, the comfort in things that do not last. The world tells you that suffering is unfair, that pain is to be avoided at all costs. But if you belong to God, then your suffering has meaning. It is not punishment, it is preparation. It is proof that you are being shaped into something greater, that you are being molded for a purpose far beyond yourself. The greater the calling, the greater the refining. The weight of your trials is evidence of the weight of your purpose. You must understand that ease and comfort do not create strong men. Strength is forged in the fire. Faith is proven in the storm. It is not in the absence of trials that a man is made, but in the midst of them. If you have been chosen, then your suffering is a sign that God is at work in you. It is a sign that He refuses to leave you as you are, that He is taking you deeper, that He is preparing you for something you cannot yet see. The breaking is necessary, the crushing is necessary, because without it you would never be able to carry the weight of the purpose He has placed on your life. Every hardship, every loss, every betrayal has been a tool in His hands, shaping you, strengthening you, making you into the vessel He needs you to be. And when the time comes, when the refining is complete, you will look back and see that none of it was wasted, that every pain was a step toward the purpose He ordained for you before you were even born. Sin does not trouble the ordinary man. He walks in it, he delights in it, he is numb to its weight. But you are not like him. When you fall, something within you breaks. You do not shrug it off. You do not excuse it. You feel it deep, as if a dagger has been driven into your soul. The things that once entertained you now trouble you. The words that once easily left your mouth now bring conviction. The thoughts that once seemed harmless now feel like chains around your heart. This is not natural. This is evidence of something greater at work within you. God does not let his own rest in sin. Others may do what they please, walking in rebellion without a second thought. But you cannot. He does not let you go. He does not let you be comfortable in compromise. That is because he has placed his hand upon you. He has called you to something more. You have been marked by holiness, and anything less than that grieves you. When you sin, you feel it not just in your mind but in your spirit. It is not a shallow guilt, not a mere feeling of regret. It is a crushing weight, a deep sorrow that will not leave you alone. This is not weakness, this is a sign of life. A dead man does not feel the weight of his sin. A lost soul does not mourn his rebellion against God, but you mourn, you grieve. You long to be free. That is because his spirit is in you. And where his spirit is, there is war against sin. This war is proof of who you are. If you belong to the world would love you as its own. But you do not belong to the world, you have been called out, set apart, chosen. And because of that, the things that once held you cannot hold you anymore. The habits, the desires, the sins that once ruled you are now at war with the new creation that God is making you into. And even when you fall, even when you stumble, something inside of you refuses to stay down. That is not your own strength. That is the power of the one who called you. You may think that because you struggle, you are failing. But the struggle itself is a sign of life. The battle in your heart is evidence that God is at work. The conviction you feel is proof that he has not left you alone. If you were abandoned, if you were forsaken, you would not care. You would sin and feel nothing. But the very fact that your heart breaks when you turn from him is the loudest proof that you are his. Do not mistake conviction for condemnation. The enemy will whisper that you are unworthy, that you will never change, that you are too weak, too sinful to ever walk in holiness. But God disciplines those he loves. He corrects those he calls. His conviction is not meant to destroy you, but to lead you to repentance, to restore you, to draw you closer. If he were finished with you, he would not be convicting you at all. You are not fighting alone. The very fact that you feel the weight of sin is because he is working in you, shaping you, cleansing you, calling you to holiness. And though the battle is fierce, though the struggle is real, the one who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. There is a voice that does not leave you alone. It is not the voice of man, nor is it the voice of your own desires. It is deeper, stronger, more relentless. It calls you when you are alone, when the noise of the world fades and you are left with nothing but the weight of its command. It is not a suggestion, it is not a gentle request, it is a call that shakes your very soul. It disturbs you, disrupts you, refuses to let you remain where you are. You may try to ignore it, but it does not fade. You may try to resist it, but it does not relent. That is not ordinary. That is not natural. That is the voice of the one who calls his own. There was a time when you lived as you pleased, when you followed your own plans, when you built a life according to your own desires. And yet, something changed. The path you once walked so confidently now feels uncertain. The things that once satisfied you now feel empty. The direction you thought was right now feels like a dead end. That is no accident. That is no mere coincidence. That is the hand of God redirecting, disrupting, calling. This call is not always loud. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it comes as a quiet but unshakable burden. A stirring deep within, a weight that presses on your spirit. It is the awareness that you were made for something beyond yourself, that there is a purpose greater than anything you have yet to grasp. And though you may not see the full picture, you know with certainty that you cannot remain as you are. Many hear the call, but few respond. Some push it aside, drowning it out with distractions, with the comforts of this world. Some run from it, fearing what it will cost. But those who are truly chosen cannot escape it. It follows them. It haunts them. It will not leave them in peace until they surrender. Because this call is not an invitation to an easy life, it is a command to lay everything down. To leave behind what is safe, what is familiar, what is comfortable. To step into the unknown, trusting only in the one who calls. Look at those who have answered before you. Abraham was called to leave his homeland, with no map, no clear destination, only a command to go. Moses was called from the wilderness, pulled from obscurity to stand before a king. Peter was called from his fishing boat, told to abandon everything he knew and follow. None of them had all the answers. None of them knew the full cost. But they heard the call, and they obeyed. And now you stand where they once stood. You hear the same voice, feel the same pull, wrestle with the same fear. But the question is not whether you are called. The question is whether you will answer. Because once God has placed his hand upon you, once he has set you apart for his purpose, there is no turning back. You can try to build your own plans, chase your own dreams, carve out your own path, but you will never be at peace. Because your life is not your own. You have been chosen, you have been marked. And the one who calls will not stop until you follow. You can feel it, can't you? The pull, the weight, the undeniable truth that you were meant for more. You have heard the call, you have felt the stirring in your spirit, and now you stand at a crossroads. There is no escaping this moment. You either step forward in obedience, or you resist and wrestle against the very one who created you. But let me tell you this, if you are chosen, you will never have rest until you answer. Some think they can run. They think they can silence the call by burying themselves in their own plans, their own ambitions, their own desires. They try to drown out the voice with distractions, with relationships, with the temporary comforts of this world. But it does not work. No matter how far they go, no matter how much they achieve, something still feels off. There is an emptiness that will not leave, a void that no earthly thing can fill. Because when God calls a man, he does not let him go. Look at Jonah. He thought he could run, thought he could escape the call of God. He boarded a ship, set out in the opposite direction, convinced he could control his own destiny. But God would not have it. The storm came, the waves raged, and Jonah was thrown into the sea. He found himself swallowed, trapped, brought to the lowest place he had ever been. Not because God hated him, but because God loved him too much to let him waste his life in rebellion. That is what happens when you resist. That is what happens when you ignore the call. If you are chosen, you do not have the option of an ordinary life. You were not created for ease and comfort. You were not set apart so you could blend in with the world, live as you please, and chase the things that will one day turn to dust. You were called to something higher, something greater, something eternal. And that means sacrifice. That means surrender. That means giving up everything, your plans, your pride, your control, and placing it all in the hands of the one who knows your purpose better than you do. Listen to me. You are not here by accident. You are not wandering this earth without direction. Some of you have felt it deep within, the stirring, the weight upon your soul, the undeniable pull that you were meant for something greater. That is no accident. That is no random feeling. That is the voice of the one who calls, the one who sets apart, the one who chooses, whom he will use for his glory. Do you feel restless in the things of this world? Do you look upon the desires of men, their pursuits, their ambitions, and find yourself unsatisfied? That is the first sign. A man chosen for a greater purpose cannot find rest in the lesser things of this world. He is haunted by eternity. He is burdened with something beyond himself, a fire that cannot be extinguished. Has suffering followed you? Has hardship knocked at your door more than once? Do not be deceived. God does not waste pain. He does not waste trials. Those he calls, he crushes. He molds, he refines. The world tells you that suffering is a curse, but I tell you, look to the men of old, the men who shook kingdoms, who stood in the fire, who faced lions unshaken. They were not pampered. They were not spared affliction. They were broken so that they might be made strong. Does sin grieve you? When you stumble, does it break you? Do you long for holiness not out of duty but out of desperation because you cannot stand to be apart from him? This is not the mark of an ordinary man. This is the mark of one chosen, one called, one set apart for a divine purpose. A heart that yearns for righteousness is a heart that has been touched by the hand of God. And do you hear the call? Not just a whisper, but a command that shakes the very foundation of your soul. A voice that says, rise, follow me, leave behind what is safe, what is comfortable. Step into the unknown, for I am with you. That is not the voice of man. That is the voice of the Almighty. So I ask you, will you answer? Will you submit? Will you give up everything for the one who has called you? Because if you are chosen, you will have no rest until you do. There is something different about you, something unshakable, something that cannot be silenced no matter how much you try to ignore it. You look around at the world and see men chasing wealth, pleasure, success, and recognition, yet none of it satisfies you. You may have tried to fit in, to pursue the things they pursue, to desire what they desire, but deep down, it leaves you empty. There is a restlessness inside you, a constant stirring, a longing for something more, something beyond the shallow offerings of this life. That is not a mistake. That is not some random dissatisfaction. That is evidence of a greater calling. God does not allow his chosen ones to be comfortable in the world. Others may go on with their lives content with temporary pleasures, unconcerned with deeper matters, but not you. You feel the weight of something greater pressing on your soul. Even in moments of success, when everything seems to be going well, there is still that quiet whisper reminding you that you were made for more. It is as if the things of this world cannot fully claim you because you do not belong to them. You have been set apart. This restlessness is not meant to torment you. It is meant to awaken you. It is meant to strip away illusions, to break the hold of trivial pursuits, to drive you toward the only one who can satisfy. If you were meant for an ordinary life, you would not feel this way. If you were just another person among the billions walking this earth, then your heart would not be troubled by something beyond what the eyes can see. But the fact that you cannot shake this longing, the fact that your soul aches for something more, is proof that you were created for a purpose far greater than yourself. Look back at your life and recognize the pattern. Have you ever wondered why certain things never worked out, why doors that seemed perfect for you were suddenly closed? Have you ever noticed how even when you tried to settle, something inside you resisted? That is not coincidence. That is divine intervention. God does not allow his chosen ones to rest in mediocrity. He disrupts their plans. He shakes their foundation. He removes their comfort, not to harm them, but to lead them. What you have seen as disappointments may very well have been his way of redirecting you toward your true purpose. You may feel like an outsider, like you do not fully belong anywhere. You may struggle to relate to those who are content with the fleeting things of this world. You may even feel misunderstood, as if no one else truly sees the weight that you carry. That is because those who are called are often isolated. They are often separated, not because they are better than others, but because they have been marked for something different. The burden you feel is not a curse. It is evidence that you are being prepared. This is the reason why the things of this world cannot hold you. You were not created for them. You were created for something eternal, something unshakable, something far beyond human ambition. That hunger inside you, that longing that will not go away, is a sign that God is drawing you toward him, calling you to something greater. Do not ignore it. Do not numb it with distractions. Lean into it, because the one who placed it inside you will not let you rest until you find what you were made for. Pain is never without purpose. Every hardship, every trial, every moment of suffering that you have endured was not random. It was not meaningless. You may have questioned why certain things happened to you, why life seemed harder for you than for others, why every step forward was met with resistance. But understand this: God does not waste pain. He does not allow suffering in the lives of those he has chosen unless it serves a greater purpose. The fire you have walked through was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to refine you.